From the Clock Tower, this is the C.S. Lewis Book Club. I'm Dan.
And I'm Alex. Welcome to our book club. We're on a walking tour through Middle-earth. We do not love the road for its straightness, nor the walking for its rhythm, nor the podcaster for his loquacity. We only love that which they intend.
In this episode, we'll be talking about Book 4 of The Lord of the Rings, the second half of The Two Towers. We're not reviewing the book, but we still might spoil it if you haven't read it yet. So if you don't want that, pause here and go read. We'll be waiting right here for you when you get back.
Awesome. Was that a little over the top?
Not even a little bit. You know, like you said, the podcast therefore is loquacity, but we love what you intend. Or defend.
I intend to sound loquacious. I intend to be really profound, and unfortunately, that seems to backfire on me a lot.
For those of you who didn't catch it, Alex was loosely quoting Faramir with that text. Well done. All right. Housekeeping. I just was going to say, I mentioned, Alex, that the other night I had a minute and I got to sit down and started reading Perelandra. Sometimes I just miss C.S. Lewis. So I said, and what stood out to me was how brilliantly he crafts the conversation between, and it's just when Ransom's first meeting the lady, the queen, and as she grows older each day, as she gains in wisdom, and how eloquently he depicts her character and how she develops in that conversation, and what it's like to be in a place where even just a lie burns on your tongue because the world is so new and pure. I just love it, and I love C.S. Lewis. So that's all.
That's good.
What do you have for housekeeping?
Now I'm the one who edits these episodes, and it was when I was going through our last episode, we did not talk about Pippin and the Palantir very much. And I don't think we need to talk about it now.
How could you?
Because the Palantir will come up again, and hopefully I'll have gotten to a point where I'm all right with not solving every problem and saying everything. But I do think that there's a lot to the Palantir in its modern iteration with like social media and our myopic and tunnel vision view of the rest of the world, and especially how it affects children, I think is where Pippin's engagement with it is really instructive. Pippin's kind of like the Fellowship's resident child. He operates in a lot of ways with innocence and yet foolishness. That is true of every child's development. And I think that seeing how helpless he is with the Palantir and Gandalf's engagement with him is very instructive as far as how should we engage. I don't know if it's going to be effective for my place, or if I even know enough of what I'm talking about to say how what you can learn for how to help your kids navigate social media or the internet or whatever. But if you go back and read that part with Pippin and have that on your mind, I think it's really instructive.
Okay, I'm going to do it. Homework assignment. I like it.
If you needed any more homework from us.
You want to jump in on summary and themes?
Sure.
All right.
Frodo and Sam set out for Mordor. While traversing the Emyn Muil, they notice Gollum on their trail and catch him, but spare his life when he swears to guide them through the Dead Marshes to the gate of Mordor. He does, but the Black Gate proves too heavily guarded to pass unseen, and Gollum convinces them to enter Mordor by another way. But treachery is on his mind. He's been scheming to reclaim his precious. Detouring through the no-man's land of Ithilien, the smoke of an imprudent meal gives them away, and they are captured by a band of Gondorian rangers. Fortunately, their captain Faramir, a noble and honest man, is convinced enough of the hobbits' errand to let them go, and discovering Gollum means to take them through the path of Cirith Ungol, warns the hobbits not to trust their skulking guide. Sure enough, Gollum's secret plan is to lead them unawares into the lair of the monstrous spider Shelob. But all goes awry for everyone, leaving Sam as the new ring bearer.
Good summary.
Thank you. It's funny, sometimes I'll be writing this and trying not to sound too AI.
Yeah.
I don't want to be... It's a funny new self-consciousness to not want to do things.
You're trying to deviate.
Yeah, deviate from the tells. You know?
I like that. For themes today, I'll start.
Yeah, go.
This was the book where Lord of the Rings really came home for me as far as why this is such a great story. And we're going to talk about this later, I'm sure, with Sam, what he's talking and thinking about what makes a great story. But you have these characters, these heroes, who are pushed to the end of their ability, and they're only, I mean, Frodo's, he's literally like falling into the pond, or, he's so slumped over, he's passing out, and it's only because Sam is just strong enough to get him to take the next step. And even Gollum in some instances is pushing them forward. Like, they're all at the extremity of whatever limit they actually have as their ability. And that's what makes it a great story. And then the other piece of this great story is, we've talked over and over how J.R. Tolkien did not like analogy. And I always go back to that because I really loved The Pilgrim's Regress. And whenever C.S. Lewis, from what you've shared, just didn't think it was his best work, and it really resonated with me, and I loved it, and the way it depicted the different characters, Mr. Sensible, Mr. Wisdom, whatever. But what analogy lacks for me, and what you see in these stories, is the depth of real human experience. Because real human experience, you don't meet a Mr. Wisdom. You might meet someone who's wise. You might meet Faramir. But they have their human frailties and limitations, and the dynamics of whatever the situation that's going on with Gollum taking fish from the sacred pool, and Faramir's asking for justice, and Frodo's asking for mercy, and trying to navigate the trust that he's built with Gollum, and also his... That's what you can't get when you're just talking to a Mr. Wisdom or a Mr. Sensible. That when the depth, like, that's why, these are all Dan's opinions, but that's why Tolkien's saying, hey, like, this is why we all need to create our own mythologies, our own worlds, because it almost, on the outset of this, when Alex would say, you should maybe read the Silmarillion, and I was like, that sounds so ridiculous. With what time am I going to go learn about the history of some mythological world that someone else created? But where I'm sitting now, I actually see the value that the deeper the story and the narrative, the more like real life it becomes, and the more applicable these characters can become, and the more impactful that their choices and decisions, though fictitious, can impact us and how we navigate our own decisions and stuff. So this book landed for me in a big way, and I'm excited to talk about it. I don't know if that was a theme, but I was just excited to get that off my chest.
Better than a theme. I know it is. That's a even broader theme. I love that. And but what I was thinking as you were talking, going through each of those elements, what's interesting is that one of the ways that this is different than the way the movies play out is the movies are really almost. This is one of the ways that the movies have aged. They're pretty timeless, but in some ways, you can catch, oh, this seems like an older movie.
Yeah.
And one of the ways is it's a little over the top emotionally, and especially with Faramir and the hobbits, they're really kind of not emotional. Like Frodo is very rational, very reasonable. So is Faramir. Sam gets a little carried away and he gets called out for it. But that's not where the emotionality is. So you talking about like, okay, so logic, when was the last time you had a logical debate with somebody and anybody changed their mind? Right? It's story that allows you to change minds, and where the depth is. But it's not just impassioned emotion. I don't think that's what you're getting at. It's like the story is helping your own brain create the meaning in the language that your brain has created meaning, almost like a dream. you have an experience, and then your brain takes you through that experience, and you have the emotion behind it where it doesn't, even the narrative doesn't really make sense when you wake up. But it's like, oh, everything that I was learning through that day is now more meaningful to me because my brain took it through its own language. And so it's not that these stories are they're not syrupy. They're not, what is it? Sam says what Sam would have called using some sauce, right? They're not saucy. They're not like trying to evoke or be over the top. There's a term for this. What is it? Sensationalist or sensationalistic. They're not sensationalistic. In fact, they almost give off the vibe like they're intentionally not sensationalistic sometimes. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't take away from the depth of the mythological narrative, I don't think.
Yeah.
Is that fair to say? Because what you just said was very impassioned, and it like, oh, I felt it.
But it's because what I'm saying is that a Mr. Wisdom type character would feel more sensational because it's so on the nose for what this is supposed to depict. But it's none of that. Like Frodo is a perfect example, the epitome of mercy blended with wisdom. And Sam realized that, but even Sam, his best friend, didn't see that all the way through. And even I, with Sam, would see certain decisions. And it's like Batman not being able to kill Joker. I'm always just like, just kill him. Like he is wrecking havoc on your city. But like, that's how I feel about Frodo Gollum dynamic. But it's because it's so complex and not sensational that it actually allows me to relate to it and really feel like it has meaningful. These characters are becoming meaningful examples for me of how I want to be in my life.
Yeah.
And if they were too sensational, it wouldn't be that. It'd be, this is really instructional. It's cool to see what wisdom looks like, but it would be different.
Yeah. It's almost like the value's in the subtlety, not in the sensationalism.
And I've heard people describe Lord of the Rings as certain parts of it being too boring because he goes into descriptive of what's going on with leaves or nature or whatever else. But real life is boring in the ways like you might just be traveling or smell of hot horse, like we always say, or whatever. Like there's parts of it where, because that's built into the book, this is a real mythological world. It's not just a sensational one to keep you always excited about whatever the next page is or leave you on a cliffhanger. It's telling you, it's bringing you into a world.
Yeah. Yeah. The boringness blossoms into profundity.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. Don't skip the poems. Don't skip the descriptions. All of that is laying this very robust foundation for the things that get built on top of it.
I think if you have a hard time, maybe we might get hate mail for this, but if you have a hard time reading this book and really getting into the story, I would guess you have a hard time reading scriptures as well. Not to say this is scripture, but I'm saying that it's similar in that it can be dismissed as boring or superficial, but it has a depth that has to be discovered with work and time.
I think that's totally fair. That's my experience. As I've gotten older, the scriptures haven't changed. And yet my experience with them sure has.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, you've got, sorry, I ran away with that one. You've got slave morality fall without the hope of spring.
Yeah, Faramir calls the state of Gondor a fall without the hope of spring. And there's a lot where, I think that's a big theme with this book in particular because it's in the middle and because we're seeing all of the decay and we're seeing like this enter into Mordor, which is what, it wasn't built by the orcs. It was built by men. And we're seeing how complacency has become the edifice of their enemies.
Can I add to your thought of complacency, but also just a misaligned focus or a focus like an idolatry?
Oh, of course.
They're idolizing or focused on the wrong things.
Yeah. And then that slave morality, that hopefully that's a little clickbaity. I don't know. The slave morality, that's a Nietzschean term. And it was his criticism of Christianity. Because his lack of understanding of true Christianity, he saw it as this defeatist type ideology, which it is the opposite.
Yeah, it's like that's.
But what he saw, I think, is a prudent critique. And it reminded me of George MacDonald saying in The Great Divorce, pity was meant to be a spur to that, or a spur that drives joy to help misery, but it can be used the wrong way round. It can be used for a kind of blackmailing. Those who choose misery can hold joy to ransom by pity. And the reason I thought of this, and this kind of was heavy on my mind during this book, is because Gollum is so pitiful. And you see this juxtaposition of the way that Frodo engages with Gollum and that Sam engages with Gollum. And I think the movie gets it a little wrong. I understand why they did it. I think it was, for a movie, it's a good choice. And I'm going to say that every time because I'm maybe too timid to even criticize the films. But Frodo seems to be, in the films, won over by the pitiful Gollum. And in this, he reveals that he wasn't being fooled. And even Sam thought Frodo was being fooled. But Frodo's just keeping in mind what Gandalf had said to him. And there's even a flashback in the book, the flashback of why not to kill Gollum. One of the things Gandalf says is, don't be so quick to deal out death in the name of justice, fearing for your own safety. It's not just this generalizable meekness. That's not what Gandalf's talking about. He's not just saying, just be soft and don't ever execute justice. What he's saying is, you are trying to pretend that your sense of justice is justice, but really it's fear. Don't make decisions based on fear. Don't pretend to have this morality. We talked about this last episode, but that we can pretend that our vices are virtues. It's easy to say I'm a peacemaker when really I'm just a coward. I'm a pacifist, but I don't want to die in war. That's why. That's why I'm a pacifist, because knives or swords scare me, right? And so that's where the slave morality from Nietzsche, that's what his critique was, is if you look at Christian virtues from an uncharitable perspective, they all can masquerade as cowardice. But when you look at the source of Christian virtues, when you look at Christ, him on the cross is not giving in. He's not ransom laying down in the forest of Malacandra so that Weston and Devine can catch him. He gave himself bravely. He overcame. He was courageous and powerful beyond the limits of human comprehension.
It was the most courageous thing that someone in his position with his power could have done.
That's right. It was strength that stayed its hand instead of weakness that portrayed itself as some sort of as virtue in weakness. And that's where that keeping that in mind, maybe it doesn't come across exactly that literally, but I couldn't help but keep that paradoxical dilemma in my mind as I looked at the interactions of Sam, Frodo, and Gollum, and then to kind of get this paragon of noble virtue in Faramir as like a way to maybe take your mind out of the mire or the dead marshes of that kind of pathetic grouping. Good for themes. I know you read Perelandra between our last recording. Did you see any Perelandra in these chapters at all?
I'm sure I could make up associations here on the spot, but no, I was just enjoying Perelandra. What do you have?
I saw Last Battle, kind of the Tyrion and Jewel, just doing the hard thing, not thinking there. We talked about
the
this
resignation.
Yeah, the infinite resignation a little bit. Hopefully there's some faith there. But there was some last battle going into Mordor, not even thinking. It's like, okay, so there's the fall with no hope of spring, which is the state that Faramir says Gondor's in. But then also the fall of your own story and life and going into Mordor and not really waiting until you have an assurance of a return journey before you go into it. The whole book kind of felt like sinking deeper into despair throughout. Faramir was kind of this nice little spark in the middle of it, but the journey ends at like the depths with maybe just a tiny spark of a teaser to bring you out of it. And so I saw, obviously, there's the illusion of the great divorce and seeing the different characters play out. And these are very good. This book is a very good character analysis of specifically 4 different characters, Sam and Frodo, Gollum, and then Faramir. And so looking at them almost with a great divorce kind of engagement with how they fight against, or how they might fight against joy or fight for going up the mountain sort of thing. And you can almost see where they would fall in that story a little bit.
Yeah. As far as my on the spot comparison or thought on Perelandra, I'm just to the part where Westons showed up on the planet and they had their first interaction. But I am thinking in the same way that Sam and Frodo are confronting the inevitability of their demise or this ill-fated journey. Just the point that Ransom gets to, where Weston, this talking devil, can just go on and on and on, and he physically is just not going to be able to compete with this, and you need that eventual savior moment to have Ransom come out on top. So,
yeah, you had mentioned the unmanness of Gollum before.
Yeah,
so I think that's a good comparison. Well, let's take a break and get back.
Let's take a break.
Yeah, let's take a break.
Hi, my name is Theo, and I have a podcast called The Theo Show, where me and my dad talk about interesting things we're learning and try to understand them better. It's a short, fun podcast for kids and parents to enjoy together. And if you like learning new things in a simple way, this podcast is for you. So after this episode, go check out The Theo Show on Spotify or Apple Podcast. See you there!
Welcome back. Alex, where do you want to start?
I want to start with the Gaffer's insults and his affections. Sam has a hard time talking about himself or even wisdom without talking about his dad and what his dad has told him. And he even will say stuff like, he makes a mistake and he says, just like the Gaffer would say, and then recounts the insults that were given to him growing up, and who knows how recently, because apparently the Gaffer still has a huge influence on Sam's perspective of himself. And later we get, this is when Gollum's being a little bit sarcastic and using one of the insults that Sam used for Gollum. And he says, I have to use names that I'm given, as like stinker was one of them, right? And Frodo reminds him that it's not wise to use labels, even if they're true. And we talked about this a little, the power of a name and what names you give yourself. And seeing with Treebeard how deep a name can be. It's not just a compilation of sounds that indicate you. It's your history and your motives and your allegiances and your pedigree and all of that. And to say that your name is just a single characteristic it's diminishing even in the positive. You're not just a hero or whatever, whatever the names could be. And so I think that comes up enough in this book that I think it's got to be an intentional lesson. But don't take the labels that the Gaffer has given you.
I know you have taken this to heart and have believed this for a long time. You are very intentional about the names that you give to your own kids. And I know once we had a conversation just about how we've almost gone opposite directions. Our names for our kids have been fairly simple.
More in the style of C.S. Lewis, by the way.
Like Jack.
Not that he named any kids, but yeah. But yeah, exactly. Jack's a perfect example. That's what C.S. Lewis went by.
But I wonder what. Sometimes I think about it and I feel regret. Like, oh, I should have put more thought into giving this name and giving this meaning, because that's something you can continue to give to your kids through the rest of their life and something that they can self-reference with. But I'm not going to change their names now. I just was curious.
No, I don't want to pressure you. That's the thing is, if you look at people's decisions, everyone can be an indictment on yourself if everything's self-referential. No, me naming my kids what I named them is not to say that I disapprove or like, who cares what I think of how you named your kids, right? Or what you think about how I named my kids. It's like, I don't know. I just heard so many people talk about, need to name your kids be careful. And some people have this idea that simpler is better because you don't want the kid to be self-conscious. And it's like, well, that takes agency out of the whole thing. I want my kid to have the challenge of being self-conscious. I don't know. I think of what Isaiah named his son, Mahala Shala Hashbaz or something. Destruction is imminent. I didn't name my kid that. I do take it seriously, but that's not something that I'm going to say and I don't shy away from telling people what they should do. But I'm not going to tell you that you need to take your naming of your kid to the level that I do it,
Yeah. No, I this one's not going to keep me up at night. I just, I'm just trying to think or apply where else you could use this little nugget of wisdom you've highlighted in my life.
Since our last recording, I've named another child.
Whoa. That's heavy.
And middle name is Goldberry, so.
Awesome. All right. What did you take from, you talked about this before we hit record, but the first part of this section is pretty narrative. They're traveling, Gollum catches up with them, their first interaction. Frodo has Gollum did you see anything in Frodo having Gollum swear on the ring, and that's what ultimately ties Gollum to them for the rest of the book?
I was trying to think if I even understood this distinction. He doesn't want him to swear on the precious, but by the precious. He allows him to swear by the precious. And I'm not sure, I guess we don't do a lot of oath swearing sort of behavior nowadays culturally. But what it means to swear on something and by something, I know that the danger is that if you swore on the ring, that it might have some power over your oath, but by it, I'm not sure if it's just this prepositional thing where he's like, by it is not right on top of it, or if there's like some significance to oath making.
I'm thinking that when we swear on the Bible, we put our hand on the Bible,
right,
versus by it.
And the virtue of the word of God is what is binding that oath. What does it mean to swear by something? Is that just alongside it, or is it swear by your perception of that thing? I don't know.
Yeah.
But Frodo does take issue with swearing on the ring.
So, why does by it or on it bind Gollum?
Well, Frodo
is that because it is the thing that he most reveres, or?
I think Frodo's particular insight is he feels the power that the ring has over him. And he knows that is the motivation behind everything that Gollum is doing. So he has this insight. And what we figure out later, or what we're told later, or what Sam figures out by hearing what Frodo says, is that Frodo's far more aware of all of the psychological motivations and forces at play with himself and with Gollum than he lets on. And he does keep a lot of things close to the chest. Faramir even calls him, well, doesn't call him out for that, but Faramir even brings that up, that he hasn't been entirely truthful with him. And Frodo is doing that intentionally. So there's a lot more awareness of the character of Frodo, I think, than you would get if you just experienced this book through watching the movie. The Elijah Wood Frodo is not nearly as, I don't want to say in control, because it's not that he's in control. It's just, he's a lot more responsibly aware of the danger that he's in and his dilemma. So it isn't just this haphazard throw a hobbit into Mordor kind of situation. It is a very thoughtful Hobbit of the Shire, very thoughtful, committed, loyal, and logical Hobbit going on his own furry feet into Mordor. And I think that to understand that difference, it helps go through this continual sinking into the mire type situation. It almost is like, okay, now it's actually more applicable. It's not just this haphazard danger that we're observing.
Yeah. I like in chapter 8, Frodo has a moment where he says something about even if Gandalf and Aragorn and everyone in the council didn't even know how this all ended, it wouldn't matter, that he had to continue forward. I liked this idea of him continuing to shed, and I think going and doing the thing for your friends or for the story or for those are good motivations, but he has to continue to shed those because those all fall away as he starts to as he has to confront, I'm probably going to fail, I'm going to fail, but I'm going to keep going. And Sam, same thing. The story's not even going to get told because I'm going to fail, and the ring's going to go bad. There's going to be no song because he tries to like buoy himself up with that thought and then promptly kills it, and yet they remain committed to the duty.
Yeah, that's great. I was just thinking, imagine Sam's learning as he's watching Frodo, and to see Frodo as a moral guide for Sam, I think is good. It's good instruction because the test comes for Sam later. He's always been dutiful. He's always been loyal and dutiful to Frodo this whole time. But we see that can't last forever. You can have these admirable mentors in your life, but you have to get to the point where you let go of that. Mm-hmm. You have to grow beyond that. And I like that we see that with Sam.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm hesitating to say this. You can edit that out. I think in some ways your comfortability, or at least you're further on the path in the way that you live out your masculinity, and it's called me up a little bit to step into that place in the same way. So thank you, Frodo.
Yeah, if you haven't
happy to be Sam along the path.
If you haven't caught on this podcast, I'm kind of an alpha.
I'm glad we got there. So, first episode, something we were talking about Boromir for Lord of the Rings, and you kind of said, just wait till we get to Faramir. Mm-hmm. So, talk to me about Faramir.
Well, I called Boromir like the best in men because it was almost like, reading the Silmarillion, you get this real good juxtaposition of elves and men. Like, it really kind of dives into that, and you get certain men like Beren that show this incredible bravery, but the whole time the real underlying theme is for a man, and so when I say Boromir is like the best in men, I mean he's like this Beren type. You're totally aware of all the shortcomings of men the whole time. You're impressed with this guy, But his brother Faramir is even more impressive, almost precisely for the ways that he's not like Boromir. The movies really do not. Faramir is probably the character who's
the biggest letdown for you.
Yes. Yeah, the movies don't do him justice at all.
For every time Alex references the movies, what I'm thinking is I'm excited to watch those movies. So,
Maybe.
so if I'm not commenting, it's not because I don't think what you're saying.
See, this is where it's good that you haven't seen the movies, because it makes me try to, well, it keeps me out of the comparison, but then also when I'm doing the comparison, I have to kind of explain it because you're not like right there with me.
Yeah.
Faramir plays a good story element, but they don't want I don't think Peter Jackson wanted him to like derail the plot, because there's so many intricate plots in these books that I think him being kind of just this in the shadow of Boromir and not loved by his father in the same way. But in this, you really see that not loving Faramir means that his dad does not have his priorities aligned. We don't get to Denethor yet, but Faramir is not beta. And the movies kind of make him seem like beta compared to Boromir. Faramir is obviously the alpha. When you take the behavior of insecurity and inferiority complexes, if you're going to analyze it by that, Boromir shows a lot of that, the insecurity type behaviors. And Faramir's just above it. He's so above it that he is apparently the only man, if he's being honest, that if he saw the ring lying on the side of the road, he wouldn't pick it up. He's used logic and wisdom to that degree where he's conquered all of these appetites, not by mastery, but by avoidance. He knows that distinction. When do you avoid something? And just his engagement with Gandalf and having learned from him and the tales, and he's come to the right logical conclusion. Whatever this thing is, it's not bad like an orc arrow is bad.
Are you willing to just delete your social media? Or do you have to have it on your phone and force yourself every day not to look at it?
Yeah.
For those of you contemplating switching to a dumb phone,
if you want to be more like Faramir,
don't pick it up.
Don't pick it up.
Yeah, and my vibe, and this is probably lame to talk about because I'm coming at it from not having seen the movies, is that Aragorn is one of the key, alpha, just from all of the memes you see about, like, he is the alpha, one of the alpha characters in the book. And maybe, you have a Tom Bombadil or a Faramir, and as far as movie arcs go, it'd be really hard to focus in and really show how awesome these characters are, because it would derail, and I haven't read Return of the Kings. Maybe I'm going to end up feeling like I'm a big Aragorn fan at the end, but
yeah,
not that I don't like him. I do.
No, but at least as far as this book is concerned, there are characters. Well, we don't even engage with Aragorn at all, but there is a little bit more where the movie is an Aragorn kind of story.
Yeah,
and I think what Tolkien's doing is he sets up this breadth of characters. And you have some, and this is true of like our own lives, right? Is there's some people that I think of, like if I think of admirable people, there's like, I think of my mentor through grad school, or if I think of certain people that I've met, and it's almost like they're above it all. Obviously, from their perspective, that's not true. But as far as my engagement with them is like, oh, what would Dr. Gibb do? And then there's people who, like, on the other side of the spectrum from where you are, you're kind of riding in the middle because everything normalizes to your own perspective. And there's people who are like above the challenges and people who are below it. And you're trying to navigate. And these stories are really good at identifying or following the character development of people in the middle, right? Yeah. So it's like the elves aren't really talked about that much. What's the point? We're not elves. So yeah. It's like this real broad analysis. You get a little bit more of that in the Silmarillion, and the history of elves is just as morally fraught as like the history of men. But like Arwen, for example, Arwen is this, I think her name even means the lady. She's just like this she's betrothed to Aragorn, and the movies, she takes the place of Glorfindel, another one of the characters that's kind of like, well, removed from the movies, unfortunately. But she takes the place of Glorfindel as the one who comes and rescues Frodo in the escape from the Nazgul. And we don't get a lot of character analysis. She's like not even in the books at all. There's like allusion to her, but there's not all these like big scenes and character development like they try to kind of imply. It's implied a little bit, but she's not nearly as important as Éowyn is in the story and the way the story plays out. So I think that's kind of intentional. It's almost like, okay, there's these awesome, admirable characters, and Tolkien alludes to them, but doesn't spend a lot of time trying to tell you why they're so awesome. And then, except for Bombadil, which is interesting. And then below, it's kind of just like, well, there's these pitiful creatures. And actually, there is a little bit more time, especially with Gollum, the pitiful creatures. And maybe the implication is that the people reading are probably straddling that line of pathetic to mediocre. And that's where I feel. It's like mediocre is about as good as I can do. And Faramir is a good example for that type of person.
But also, when you talk about something being above everything, like Tom Bombadil's ultimate example of that, can play with the ring and he's singing his songs and he's so much the master that he's not necessarily relatable. You love his character. It's not something that you're, what would I say?
Aspiring to be sort of thing. No, yeah.
I want to say that, but then that's the problem is I'm like, no, I do aspire to be like him. I just feel like it's Christ inviting me to be perfect like he is. I'm like, well, I'll try.
Yeah.
But Faramir feels like a relatable character in that in my human imperfection and weakness, I can aspire to that, to avoid the things that are going to be too powerful or too much for me, and identifying having the humility in spite of your great strength, in spite of your abilities, to identify the places you shouldn't go. That to me is more instructive.
Yeah, Faramir, Tolkien identified himself with Faramir. And so Faramir is kind of the voice of the morality behind these stories. So when you see him say so, it's not always...
Those are the nuggets. This is why we do this.
Well, so... I worry about this a lot of the time, like even when I was reading that quote from The Great Divorce and through the voice of George MacDonald, and it's like sometimes people will misquote Lewis because they're using a character to say something, and it's not necessarily like this is what C.S. Lewis believes. It's he's writing it because this is what this character believes.
Right.
So I'm not even sure if C.S. Lewis believes that quote like I said it, but I know his perception of George MacDonald did, and he really patted himself, so you can take it. You could be pretty confident in it because a lot of C.S. Lewis's morality was shaped by George MacDonald. But you have to be kind of careful about that when you see the morals play out, right? If you're taking Boromir's morals as a way to like pattern your life after that, well, you're doing this skewed morality from a author that's trying to actually give you a warning through this person.
Right.
You don't have to worry about that so much with Faramir because Tolkien is using Faramir as a way to like on its face without being an allegory, say this is what the motive or the morality that I'm trying to relay is. When Faramir talks about the ring, that's what Tolkien wants you to conclude about this unconfined power.
Yeah. And this is once again the depth of having its own mythology is you have Faramir and Frodo debating whether to kill Gollum.
Right.
And both of these, you could take either character and try to emulate them and be in a great place, but they're coming to a totally different decision, a very, very different and difficult decision. With Gollum's fate.
Yeah. Oh, that's great because now that conversation is like an inner dialogue.
But what yes. And I think it's instructive that it shows Faramir ultimately yields to Frodo because he does arrive at a real appreciation or respect for Frodo, and also that Gollum is Frodo's servant, not his, and so he also recognized the borders of his domain, although they were at his cave hideout place, and it was his sacred pool. As far as the life of Gollum, he deferred to Frodo. So you can see this once again, humility versus justice dynamic.
Yeah. Let's stew on that tension of an inner self
while we listen to Theo.
Yeah, let's do a break and listen to Theo.
All right.
This episode is brought to you by Telling the Truth. Have you ever done something that you knew was wrong, and when your mom and dad asked about it, you thought lying about it might help you stay out of trouble? That's when telling the truth matters most. Telling the truth means saying what really happened, even when you wish it hadn't. Lying creates confusion and problems that hurt other people and even hurt you. One lie often leads to another and another. And the more you lie, the harder it is for your mind to know what's true. Telling the truth keeps your mind connected to real life. You can't always know what will happen next when you tell the truth, but the consequences of being a truth teller, even if they're uncomfortable, are better than the ones that come from lying. Every time you tell the truth, you get a little better at facing real life and learning from it. Telling the truth doesn't mean saying everything to everyone. Some people don't use the truth well or might try to twist it. You can trust your parents, teachers, and other truth tellers. But if someone hasn't earned your trust, it's okay to keep the truth to yourself. When people know you're a truth teller, they know you don't hide from what's real, and you don't lead others away from it either. They'll know they can trust you, and you'll be able to trust yourself too. Okay, now back to the show.
Okay, let's bring it on back.
Okay, Alex was angry when I said we should move on from Faramir, so we're back with Faramir.
Livid.
Irate. If you were on YouTube, you'd see how mad he was. Okay, so just a little nudge in that direction.
Oh no, I'm going to edit that out of YouTube as well because I want everybody to think that I'm a Faramir.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, but mostly because Faramir does this thing where it's like he's super logical. And he can see through the argument, but he doesn't betray it in the moment that he's seen through the argument because he's aware of everybody who's paying attention. And when he starts to zero in, they've got Isildur's Bane.
Yeah.
He doesn't want his men to know that. So he intentionally shoots wide of the mark. And this is interesting because, later we'll see Denethor does the same thing. So it's not that the logic is itself a virtue. But this logical ability runs in the family. At least it's from these noble steward types that I guess they're being instructed in logic. And it can be used for good. Like in this case, we'll see it used for ill later.
Interesting. You have a note that Faramir would not snare an orc with falsehood?
Oh, yeah. That's how devoted he is to honesty.
See, so it's like Batman again.
I know. Yeah, he wouldn't snare an orc through falsehood. But that's the same thing. It's like Boromir saying...
But you would lie to the Nazi that shows up at your house asking if someone's hidden in the closet. Is that different?
Yeah, that's a classic dilemma, right? That's the classic dilemma. Snare, I think, is the operative word there. I wouldn't snare a Nazi by lying, but I would mislead one.
Because that's what I'm thinking with how he used logic and then went wide of the mark. Mm-hmm. There's some misleading in that as far as he understood where he started to see where it was going, intentionally misleads his men or at least keeps it hidden from
Well,
them.
and also this might not be just this generalizable virtue of honesty too. I do see that there's value, and this is tricky because sometimes the effects of the fall have some silver linings. One of them being you can take advantage, you can benefit from the less than virtuous behavior of others. It's almost like Faramir has the ability to not snare an orc because he knows Boromir will.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, yeah, and that to me takes most of the virtue out of that.
Okay.
Right.
So maybe he's not doing it as...
But this is something you've said to me in the past, which is you don't owe the truth to most people you interact with. Like put it on them to earn the trust deserving of the truth from you. That you're not encouraging me to lie to anybody, but you're also saying I don't have to open my mouth and talk to anybody about any specific thing.
Right, and when Faramir says that to Frodo, he says, you weren't totally honest with me. And Frodo says, I told no lies, and of the truth all I could.
Yes.
And even that, it's like, well, now you're giving up your motive to this guy. But I guess, since Faramir's Tolkien, I guess it's okay. But it's like, okay, what amount of prudence was practiced before Frodo even said that part? How much did he trust Faramir? And this whole conversation is one of distrust. And so it's the virtue of honesty is not trust everybody.
Right.
And maybe I don't know, maybe this is a virtue that I don't really totally align with. So I'm trying to shoehorn Tolkien into my own ideology, which is tell lies when you deem it prudent. I don't know. That seems like a weak, diluted morality.
I'm trying to decide if I should take this at its face and just say, Faramir and I are different. Like, if I know someone is an orc, aka someone who's evil and has evil intentions, I am willing to lie to stop them from being able to carry out their evil intentions. Not for my benefit, and hopefully not just because I'm scared or afraid, like Gandalf taught, but if I do feel like me acting dishonorably or lying would stop them from being able to carry out evil deeds, then as of right now, I think I'm okay with that.
Yeah, who are
just like I wouldn't kill most people, but would I kill someone to protect somebody else? Yep.
Well, so would Faramir. I mean, we see
and
this.
He 100% would. He's willing to chop the orc's head off and go and hunt them down and kill them all over the place. But he's saying he wouldn't snare them with the.
I think because by the time he would be compelled to snare them with a lie, he'd just cut their head off. So it's like that.
All right, we agree.
Right, exactly. So it's like,
don't lie to him. Beat the crap out of him.
By the time you get to that judgment where this person is totally evil and a danger to where I can't trust any truth, and
lies are no longer enough.
Exactly.
Like acting deceitfully, or you're not addressing the wickedness with the appropriate gravitas,
right?
With the appropriate reaction.
Yeah,
I like that. I can get on board with that.
Yeah. So it's, as soon as you're taken to a point where you are forced to lie to somebody, because usually in our modern times, I can't imagine. I hope you never experience this, but if you're compelled to lie to somebody, just remove yourself. Like, why are you engaging with this person at all?
Yeah.
If the only way to not cause harm is to tell a lie. Oh, well, you have the choice, usually, not to be in the same room with that person. Don't even engage, you know? And it's like, okay, well, I can't foresee all the potential contexts in which you'll be in where that dilemma, that moral dilemma will confront you. And that's why you need these, like, kind of hard and true moral heuristics.
That's exactly it. The value in this statement is the knowledge of Faramir's real, genuine, not fear-based bravery to do exactly what needs to be done to stop evil.
Right. Just as likely as that context where he would have to tell a lie to an orc, he would say, oh, this is one of the situations in which I might die, so I'm going to go down swinging.
Yeah. We are going to be taken out of context if ever. Today on the CSLO's podcast, we believe in murder.
Instead of lying, just kill.
Just kill. Yikes. What? Anything else with Faramir you want to tell me? What a good guy. Seriously, though.
I think his account of the fall of Gondor into ruin, right? Into this fall without a spring, the hope of spring, is very instructive and very applicable for our time.
And depressing.
Yeah, because he talks about how Númenóreans, when they came to Middle Earth after the fall of Númenor, that they mostly became evil, but not Gondor. And Gondor was like this carryover from the nobility of Númenor in a lot of ways. It carried on the lineage of the kings. But even in Gondor, he says that it fell by degrees into dotage, and that men hungered after endless life, unchanging. Kings made tombs more splendid than the houses of the living, and accounted old names in the rolls of their descent dearer than the names of sons, childless lords musing on heraldry.
This is terrifying because it's just all kinds of association with what we do right now today.
But think of this line: withered men compounding strong elixirs. And that all
looking at you, Brian Johnson.
Well, and
sorry, brother. Good luck on your hunt.
Well, and all that while being surrounded by death. That death was everywhere because instead of combating death in the natural way, which is through your children, like have kids and let yourself, your own experience, the ego of your existence through the windows of your own eyes, let that die.
Yeah. Find inspiration in the eating of fruit of trees we didn't plant and standing on the shoulders of giants and all this. You know, this tangent, the other day I went for a walk. It was early in the morning, and I was thinking about what can you truly be, what does it logically make sense to always be grateful for? Because I can be grateful for a sunny day or my family or all these things, but you could lose your family tomorrow in a car accident, or like, you know, there's all these things where it's like, yeah, I could be grateful in the moment, but what's something that would be permanently grateful that I could feel gratitude for? And I'm sure there's other ways to look at this, but where I landed was one of those things is the sacrifice that other people have made for me, because those things are real, they're permanent. Those sacrifices didn't have to be done. Those people voluntarily made those sacrifices on my behalf to benefit me. And then it led my mind to the ultimate sacrifice, and that's like, you know, of Christ. And you see in exactly what you read, all of this is a self-focus and preserving yourself in your lineage and looking back, but not looking back with a spirit of gratitude and looking for the sacrifices that benefited you, because that would fill you with gratitude and then give you the drive or motivation to then pay it forward and to then sacrifice and build something for your children and for the future. Instead, it's a looking back of as far as idolizing yourself and making yourself the God or the center of the universe.
Yeah. That reminds me of Screwtape trying to get the Christian man to spend all his virtue on people across the world that he's never met, as so long as he is cruel to his neighbor. And who is most your neighbor if not your children? And I think I see this a lot, where people are cruelest to the ones they're closest to. And it's an error to think that that's just some truism. No, that is a vice. That is an evil. If you cannot prioritize the ones closest to you, the people who are most dependent on you, then all of the virtue, and this is that slave morality, this is the mask of virtue. It's pretending to be virtuous, but it hides cowardice. All of that virtue that is spent on whatever type of charity outside of the realm of your stewardship is merely posturing. And that posturing is an attempt to make your tomb more elaborate than the home you've made for your children.
I agree. I also want to leave space for people who have really evil children. Jokes. All right, we need to get to Sam before we wrap up.
We do. Okay.
So, Sam. Okay.
Yeah, let's start this with. Do you want to start with that quoted text?
I absolutely do.
Okay, let's do that. So this is Sam talking about adventure in a lot of the ways that we've already talked a lot about in your own adventure and the hero's journey. So this is his kind of perspective on it.
Things in the old tales and songs, Mr. Frodo. Adventures, as I used to call them. I used to think that they were things the wonderful folk of the stories went out and looked for because they wanted them, because they were exciting and life was a bit dull, a kind of sport, as you might say. But that's not the way of it with the tales that really mattered, or the ones that stay in the mind. Folk seem to have been just landed in them, usually. Their paths were laid that way, as you put it. But I expect they had lots of chances, like us, of turning back. Only they didn't. And if they had, we shouldn't know, because they'd have been forgotten. We hear about those as just went on, and not all to a good end, mind you. At least not to what folk inside the story, and not outside it, call a good end. You know, coming home and finding things all right, though not quite the same, like old Mr. Bilbo. But those aren't always the best tales to hear, though they may be the best tales to get landed in. I wonder what sort of a tale we've fallen into.
I love that this is like, in case we've been trying to make ourselves the hero of the journey and be the protagonist that songs will be made of. What kind of story have you been landed in? You don't get to really choose.
Yeah. You don't choose the story. Your choice is whether you turn back.
Well, and even those ones that you want to emulate, what story did they think they were in when it was happening?
Yeah. This is helpful for me because I feel like I battle a little bit with feeling that my efforts to make a difference or do good in the world are somewhat futile. I don't feel like that in my family. I don't feel like that with my wife or my kids or my closest circle of friends and family. But I feel like that anytime I try to go outside of that circle, I start to feel like, how can I really make an impact with which way society's going or things like that.
I think delusion helps.
Go on.
Well, I think that's what I see in the people who are building the tombs that are greater than the houses.
Yeah.
And it's this like, well, you can delude yourself into thinking that your story is going to change the world, or you're more than just a single person. And
post more on social media. That'll get to more people.
Exactly.
That's
and you see some people on social media seem to have this huge following. And why not you? You're smart. In fact, all your thoughts you had. You didn't have their thoughts, and your thoughts are better than their thoughts.
Thanks, Alex.
That's why you had those thoughts, right? And so it's like if they only saw how great you were, then you would have what they have, and see how the spirit of resentment can well up in you. And so a lot of this like desire for fame is this false virtue of magnanimity, which is really just resentment. Well, why can't I have that? They have that, and my thoughts are smarter than theirs. And the only way to ever gain something like that, according to, I think, what Sam's saying. The only way to ever have anything like that that's worthwhile is to not have that on your mind when you're doing it. It really has to be, no, just treat your kids well, help them learn virtues, help them, don't just dote on them, right? What's that term?
Yeah, treat your kids well.
Falling by degrees into dotage. That's not what it means to treat them well. It means be so concerned. They are your priority. How they develop. They will be an adult someday. Are you helping them be the best kind of adult that you've learned how to be yourself? Are the stories that you've filled your mind with, are they true? Not true as in historically true, but are they teaching you truth in a way that can govern you to be at least a knight of infinite resignation and hopefully a knight of faith? To somebody who's willing to go into Mordor for something bigger than yourself. And that bigger than yourself is not the grandeur of social media fame or any type of fame. It's not the Boromir fame, it's the Faramir type honor, where the people closest to him are totally loyal to him. But he might be overlooked in the songs. He might even be overlooked when they make a movie about this thing. It's one of those paradoxes where the more you try to grab it, the more star systems you try to hold in your fist or whatever, you know. I don't remember exactly the Princess Leia line, but that idea of the fistful of sand sort of thing, the tighter you squeeze, the more falls through your fingers. If you want a song to be written about you, you have to stop thinking about songs about you.
What it looked like for Sam was his best friend, who he was wholly and entirely devoted to for good reasons, was given a terrible burden, and Sam said, "Your burden is mine."
Yeah.
And was there to the end. And what it looked like for Frodo was this responsibility fell into my lap, and now I don't see anyone around me that seems like the right person to do it, so I guess I'll do it. You know, like for each one of them, you can see they ended up on the road for different reasons, but it was their moral care, the strength of their moral character, that they found the path to eventually become the heroes.
Because they were content with being secondary.
Yes.
That's the story.
Never lost that.
Yeah, that's the story of the Two Towers, is the heroism of the, not resigned, but of the content second character, side character.
I didn't see that, but that's that's Faramir, that's Frodo, that's Sam. Yeah.
And especially Sam, and that's why you'll find, if you look online, people debating, is Sam really the main character? And in a way, yes, because he isn't.
Yeah.
Right? I think it's a good place to stop.
Okay. Thank you for joining us on our walking tour today. It was good to be back in the studio, Alex. In our next episode, we will be discussing Book 5 of The Lord of the Rings, the first half of The Return of the King. If you like the show, please leave a 5-star review. And if you'd like to contact us with comments, criticisms, or corrections, you can send us an email or voice memo at bookclub@mountaineer.media.
We swear by the precious. We'll come back to C.S. Lewis. But in the meantime, check out our back catalog of episodes where we talk about your favorite C.S. Lewis fiction.
Adieu.
The C.S. Lewis Book Club is sponsored by the Bowsacre Academy Self-Governance Initiative.
Because no one learns better than kids.